A prison guard walked past the cell one last time before dawn. The metal bars were locked. The walls were solid. The prisoner inside was one of the most heavily guarded men in the facility. Everything looked normal. Hours later, when the guards returned, the cell was empty. No broken bars, no tunnel, no damaged locks, just a neatly arranged bed and a mystery that would embarrass one of the most secure prison systems in the world. The prisoner was gone. And for years, nobody could fully explain how. This was the story of the prisoner who escaped the impossible. On a cold morning in January 1962, officials inside Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary began what seemed like another routine day. Located on a rocky island in the middle of San Francisco Bay, Alcatraz was designed around one simple idea: nobody leaves. The prison sat surrounded by freezing water, powerful currents, and constant surveillance. Even if someone somehow escaped the cells, they would still face the bay itself. Most experts believed the water was a death sentence. The prison's reputation became part of its security. Alcatraz wasn't just difficult to escape, it was supposed to be impossible. Yet, inside one of its cell blocks, 3 men were quietly preparing to challenge that belief. Their names were Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin. Unlike many inmates, they weren't driven by desperation alone. They were patient, methodical, and most importantly, they understood something many prisons underestimate. A prison is a machine, and every machine has weaknesses. Long before the escape began, Frank Morris had already built a reputation as an unusually intelligent criminal. He had spent much of his life moving through correctional institutions. Every prison taught him something, every guard routine, every inspection, every blind spot. By the time he arrived at Alcatraz, he wasn't just serving a sentence, he was studying a system. Meanwhile, the Anglin brothers brought a different set of skills. Raised in difficult conditions and accustomed to hard physical work, they possessed patience and practical problem-solving abilities that would prove invaluable. The 3 men ended up housed near each other. That detail would change everything, because hidden behind the concrete walls of their cells was something prison designers had never intended inmates to access. A narrow utility corridor, a forgotten space running behind the cell block itself. At first glance, the wall appeared solid, but appearances can be deceptive, especially when a prison was built decades earlier. Night after night, while guards walked their rounds, the prisoners began working, not with explosives, not with smuggled power tools, but with ordinary objects: spoons, improvised drills, pieces of metal scavenged from prison equipment. The work was painfully slow. Each scrape removed only tiny amounts of material. Each sound risked discovery. To hide the noise, they often worked during periods when music played throughout the prison. A simple distraction, but enough. Weeks became months. Months became more than a year. Slowly, small ventilation openings widened into passages large enough for a man to squeeze through. The prisoners hid their progress using carefully painted cardboard covers designed to blend with the surrounding walls. Guards looked directly at the openings countless times and never noticed. That alone was remarkable, but it was only the beginning. Beyond the walls, inside the hidden utility corridor, the men created something even more ambitious: a workshop, a secret construction site hidden inside one of America's most secure prisons. There, they assembled materials stolen or gathered over many months. Raincoats became flotation devices, rubber became waterproof seals, simple tools became engineering equipment. Every component had to serve a purpose, because the real challenge wasn't escaping the cells, it was escaping the island. The distance between Alcatraz and freedom wasn't measured in feet, it was measured in freezing water, strong currents, and overwhelming uncertainty. If their raft failed, they would disappear beneath the bay. If they succeeded, they would become legends. As the escape date approached, one final problem remained. The guards performed nighttime checks. Empty beds would immediately reveal the escape, so the prisoners built replacements. Not mannequins, not crude decoys, human heads. Using soap, paper, glue, and paint, they crafted remarkably convincing replicas. They even collected real hair from the prison barbershop. Placed carefully on their pillows, the fake heads created the illusion of sleeping prisoners. It was a simple idea, but simple ideas often change history. For months, the men had been constructing an escape route. Now they were creating time. time before anyone realized they were gone. And in prison escapes, time is everything. On the night of June 11th, 1962, the plan entered its final stage. The prison settled into darkness. Guards continued their rounds. The fake heads waited silently on the beds. One by one, the prisoners slipped through the openings behind their cells and entered the hidden corridor. From there, they climbed upward through maintenance areas few inmates had ever seen. They moved across the prison roof, then down toward the shoreline. Every step carried enormous risk. A single noise, a single flashlight beam, a single mistake, and years of preparation would end immediately. Yet somehow they kept moving. By the time dawn approached, they were gone. Not just from their cells, from Alcatraz itself. The discovery triggered panic. Search teams flooded the island. The prison launched an immediate investigation. The FBI became involved. Boats searched the bay. Helicopters scanned the water. Evidence soon began appearing. Pieces of equipment, fragments of materials, items connected to the raft. But the most important evidence never appeared. Bodies? Investigators expected to find them. Many believed the escapees had drowned. The water was brutally cold. The currents were unforgiving. The odds of survival seemed almost non-existent. Yet certainty proved elusive. No bodies were recovered. No definitive proof emerged. And that uncertainty transformed the escape into one of the most enduring mysteries in American criminal history. Years passed, then decades. Rumors surfaced from time to time. Possible sightings, anonymous tips, unverified reports. Some claimed the men survived. Others believed they perished shortly after reaching the water. The mystery became so famous that it attracted journalists, investigators, historians, and amateur detectives alike. Even official agencies continued examining new leads. Because unlike many criminal cases, this one never produced a final answer. No courtroom confession, no confirmed death, no definitive capture, just questions. And questions have a way of surviving longer than facts. Perhaps the most fascinating part of the story isn't that 3 prisoners escaped Alcatraz. It's how they did it. The prison possessed armed guards, locked cells, watchtowers, steel bars, isolation, and the natural barrier of an entire bay. Yet none of those defenses failed because of brute force. The escape succeeded because 3 men studied a system carefully enough to understand where it was vulnerable. They didn't attack the strongest part of the prison. They found the neglected part, the section nobody worried about anymore, the forgotten corridor behind the walls. In many ways, that's what makes the story so unsettling. Whether it's a prison, a company, a government, or a piece of technology, weaknesses rarely exist where people are looking. They exist where people assume there's nothing to see. Today, Alcatraz stands as a historic landmark. Tourists walk the same corridors. They peer into the same cells. They stand beside the very openings used during the escape. And almost everyone asks the same question. Did they make it? The truth is, nobody knows for certain. Maybe Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers disappeared beneath the cold waters of San Francisco Bay. Or maybe somewhere beyond the horizon of that June morning, 3 men stepped onto land, looked back at the island that was never supposed to be escaped, and realized they had done the impossible. More than 60 years later, the mystery remains locked between those 2 possibilities. And perhaps that's why the story refuses to die. Because sometimes the most fascinating prison escape isn't the one we understand. It's the one that vanished without an ending.